Welcome to Creator's Head Studio. I'm Tom Arcu, feature film producer, director, screenwriter, and novelist.
And I'm John Colton, creator of ColtonComics.com and writer of Paul Bunyan versus Dracula.
We're now going to talk about Spider-Man and Superman, and we're talking about a principle from the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We're talking about 7 habits of highly effective filmmakers or highly successful filmmakers. And now we're talking about the principle, think win-win. Now, when it comes to Spider-Man, John, what do you think is a win-win thing that happened?
What really worked for me, and I believe it's what worked for Sam Raimi, was he got to use a lot of his talents and strengths as a horror director and make parts of the movie really scary, put in some jump scares, and really, get the audience revved up. But at the same time, he was true to the comic books.
Yes.
And made a movie that also blew away the audiences. And all the comic fans were really happy with it.
Right. And let me talk about specific moments that I will always remember. Now, I'm going to talk about Spider-Man 2, because Spider-Man 2 would not be as fantastic without Spider-Man 1, because it set up that Peter Parker was just being punched. And I mean, he literally being hit in the head by somebody passing by, all that kind of stuff. But what happened was at the end of the first one, spoiler alert for Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi, and Spider-Man 2, directed by Sam Raimi. What happened was, it was a wreck. He loses his uncle. He made a mistake. He also loses the love of his life. And that's the end of Spider-Man 1. Spider-Man 2, it turns around. And what I will always remember, based on what you're talking about, the horror stuff was when the arms of Dr. Octopus were just destroying the people in the operating room. It was horrific. The screaming of the one young lady.
Anybody here take shop class?
It was just absolute horror, but it also let us know exactly what are we dealing with. Spider-Man is up against multiple vicious monsters that are the arms of Dr. Octopus. So that's always something I remember. And then the other thing I always remember is at the end, Dr. Octopus, and think about how many years have gone by. Dr. Octopus says, "I will not die a monster." And you love this guy. And there was a wonderful connection between Peter Parker and Dr. Otto Octavius. Wonderful connection, like a family. So when they are up against each other, all the stakes are there. But for him, at the end, to say, "I will not die as a monster," oh my gosh, I remember this. So this is about think win-win, because these are the moments. John, when we're writing our screenplays, we're looking for these moments, the moments that are iconic, that people will remember 20 years later or more.
I think it's a great example of a win-win. And it's kind of like the original Star Wars in that way too, because they, were able to have things that now might be called fan service, but also keep incorporating stuff that's new and have twists and turns and kind of play to each new director's strengths
Right.
depending on the story that they had.
Gotcha.
Which I thought it was brilliant when they brought Sam Raimi back to do
Mhm.
Doctor Strange.
Ah,
It was like, wow, how has he not been in charge of this franchise the whole time?
I hear you.
You know?
I hear you. Now, about Superman. Think win-win. What do you have there, John?
Okay, so win-win means that everyone benefits, right?
Absolutely.
And I feel like with Superman, you have Christopher Reeve benefits
Right.
because, you know, he gets to be in this role that made him famous worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of an amazing story in of itself because,
Right.
you know, he's a tall, skinny redhead.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you tell me that at the outset, and we're doing casting, I would say, oh, yeah, this guy might be perfect for Jimmy Olsen,
Okay.
but not Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And Lois Lane
Mm-hmm.
has her time.
Yes.
Lex Luthor, Otis, like there's so many great parts in the movie.
Yes.
Perry White,
Mm-hmm.
you know, gets to have a lot of lines, a lot of screen time.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think about all those great moments in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the scene where he rescues Lois
Yes.
with the helicopter about to fall on them.
Right.
I've watched that I've probably watched that 10 times in the last 10 years. And I've
Mm-hmm.
teared up every time at that scene. That's the
Excellent.
one that gets me.
Okay.
And the audience wins, the studio wins, the director wins, the actors win. It's win, 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 win.
Yes, absolutely. Now, the other thing that I want to throw in here is I already have good thoughts about James Gunn's Superman. Why? Because everybody complained about Superman Returns. He didn't punch anybody. Already from footage and other things, we know that Superman's going to punch somebody. But also, there's a moment there where he is interacting apparently with a squirrel. So we're going to have the nice, sweet, friendly Superman too. We're going to have both. We're going to have the powerful, punching hero, and we're also going to have the wholesome, uplifting Superman. And that's how we have win-win. The people who love that side of Superman, who is kind, and the people who love that side of the Superman, who's the warrior, they're going to win-win. And then likely we're all going to win because it's going to make money and there'll be another Superman and we'll win again. So remember, here at Creator's Edge Studio, we don't just talk entertainment.
We create it.